After a long hiatus, the presence of a new Space Marines codex marks my return to the Thematic List Build series. Ideally, I would have liked to tackle the chapters in Legion order, but with supplements for the Dark Angels, Blood Angels, and Wolves on the horizon, I figured I would start with what is available. And wouldn't you know, the first one up is a favorite of mine. So let's get into the first Thematic List Build of 9th edition, the White Scars. For those new, the goals of the Thematic List Build series is to create a 2K Strike Force sized list based around a theme central to the focused faction, and when doing so, soup is off the menu. At its onset, the philosophy was to use the tools available to a faction to create a competent and thematic list, not simply to go into another book and pull a unit more efficient for the role. With that in mind, the way 9th edition has changed detachment costs does encourage that a bit more, since multiple detachments are now discouraged rather than incentivized, which when you think about it actually does create more restrictions in how lists are constructed, since you have less freedom to spam Force Org slots. For the record, I don't think that it's a bad thing. From a game design / balance point of view, it's actually better that if I want to have the maximum amount of command points, thereby working within one detachment, I don't get to have the utility of captains, lieutenants, librarians, chaplains, and tech marines all working together. The limitation creates more opportunities for interesting decisions during list construction. But I digress. Let's take a look at the White Scars subfaction rule. 9th edition made a small but impactful change to the White Scars chapter tactic. Previously, it enabled only biker units the ability to advance and fire assault weapons and to move and fire heavy weapons without penalties. The perk for heavy weapons has been dropped, but now the advance and fire assault weapons without penalties applies to all units rather than just bikers. Overall, this is a positive change. It's more advantageous than it was previously, and it's better fitting for the White Scars. So, let's talk about the Chaplain in the room. Previously, in my Tyrannid Potentials video, I threw a little shade on the Primaris Chaplain on bike. This was from the position that the Primaris bike Chaplain invalidates the Chaplain on foot since it's better in every statistical area, and that the only feature the Chaplain on foot has over the one on bike is that it can go into a transport, which actually hurts the ability to chant litanies. And I know, while the commanding oratory stratagem does alleviate the issue for standard chaplains, and demonstrates a good understanding of the mechanics on the developer's part, for Masters of Sanctity it means they can only chant one of their litanies for the turns they start embarked. So considering that, and factoring in the biker chaplain's improvements to wounds, toughness, and mobility, it's hard not to prefer the biker option. But my grievances aside, the Primaris Chaplain on bike for the White Scars is spectacularly appropriate in almost every measurable aspect. And he will be the spiritual guide of this hunt. Poor Cursoro Khan will just have to stand around on the battle barge as a spectator. When it comes to the objective themes of the list, they are mobility and bikers to get to where the mission demands, brutal melee combat, and battlefield supremacy. The list I have put together does check those boxes, and is structured within a battalion, offering an adequate amount of command points for the many stratagems that the White Scars can flex. Let's go over to the list breakdown. The Primaris Chaplain on bike will be taken as the first HQ choice. He will be the warlord of this hunt, and serves as its crux. Everything about him has been selected with that in mind. To start, he has been taken as a Master of Sanctity, and has the accompanying warlord trait Wise Orator. This allows our extremely mobile chaplain to know one additional litany, and chant 2 prayers on a 2-up rather than 1 prayer on a 3-up. And it reduces the cost of the commanding oratory stratagem by 1. As mentioned, it's a great strat for the clutch moments when you need to guarantee that a litany will go off, or if you want to wait and see which of the many litanies he has is most suitable for the situation you are in. Due to his importance, I've decided to give him the relic, the Armor Indomitus. It's a pretty fantastic relic to give to a character you want to keep around. On the Primaris Chaplain on bike, it brings him up to 8 wounds and improves his save to 2+, and it gives him a once per game invulnerable save boost to 3+, which lasts until the end of the phase. 1 command point has also been spent for the White Scars stratagem Tempered by Wisdom to give him a second trait, which I have gone for the classic Chagorian Storm, which gives him plus D3 attacks on the charge. To break down the litanies our Master of Sanctity knows, we can start with the ones he knows automatically. The first of which is the Litany of Hate, allowing rerolls to hit in melee for core units within 6 inches. It's a powerful perk that has synergy with many other units in the list. And Strike Off the Head, which the Chaplain gets for free for being of the White Scars, granting the equivalent perk but for wound rolls, which is extremely valuable. The first of his selected litanies is the Canticle of Hate, granting a +2 to charge rolls, and boost to Consolidation, which is extremely handy to have. Granted, while the White Scar's innate ability to advance and charge does make getting into combat easier, the Canticle of Hate is great if you want to tilt the dice more in your favor, and is especially useful if your opponent has ways to reduce your charge distance. And the second selected litany is the Mantra of Strength, which is applied to himself and turns this Chaplain into a pretty potent fighter. While active, he will get a total of 6 plus D3 attacks on the charge, hitting on 2s at Strength 6, AP 1, Damage 3. And if you're in the Assault Doctrine, it would be AP -2, Damage 4. It's worth mentioning that as a Master of Sanctity, you will have at most 2 of these 4 prayers active in any given turn, allowing you to shore up your hit, wound, or charge reliability as needed. With the Warlord covered, it's time to shift focus to the initial units he will support. To start, there are 2 squads of Outriders. Outriders are pretty neat. Not only do they look cool, but for 135 points you get 12 wounds that can dish out 12 bolt rifle shots, and 16 chainsword attacks. And being a 3 model unit, it'll be quite easy to ensure all of those attacks are eligible. Advancing 20 inches, along with being able to charge, means they're quite capable of crossing the no man's land between deployment zones and getting into the enemy lines. A few notable stratagems for the Outriders. Gene Rot Might, for 1 command point, enables unmodified hit rolls of 6 to auto-wound the target, which works great with the Litany of Hate, allowing you to reroll all your hits and fish for those 6s. And if you need to swing with something a little meaner, it can be combined with Adaptive Strategy, which lets you leverage the Assault Doctrine, bumping up the Astartes Chainsword to an AP 2 damage weapon. And probably the stratagem I value most with the Outriders in mind is the White Scar stratagem, Strike for the Heart. For 2 command points, it would allow a unit of Outriders to consolidate D6 plus 6 inches rather than 3 inches, which in my opinion opens up some real big brain plays. If the Outriders destroy the charged unit, Strike for the Heart will help them tag another, and if the initial charge was against a unit you want to stay in combat with, it can help you surround them, since not only does it allow you to mitigate from being fired upon, but as White Scars they can fall back and charge on their next turn. Just be sure not to touch your charged target's base during your pile-in move. But a small disclaimer, it's important to keep in mind with 9th edition introducing the core stratagem Desperate Breakout, it will enable a method for surrounded units to fall back and through any engaged units. However, they do so at the cost of command points. They still count as a unit which made a fallback move, which likely debilitates their shooting output, and still may incur casualties for doing so. To help support these Outriders are a 3-man unit of Invader ATVs taken with multi-meltas. They will tag along and fire into enemy armor and ideally open up some charge targets from potential transports, or to clear charge lanes, or just to serve as a fast-moving anti-tank weapons platform. The unit of 3 will have 6 multi-melta shots, and if advancing will allow the target to get into the half range for the multi-melta's damage boost, then advance away. Thanks to the Invader ATV having the biker keyword, the White Scars 1 command point stratagem Born in the Saddle is there to maintain their ability to advance and fire their weapons. And the last 2 units that comprise what I qualify as the immediate pressure applying units are 2 Storm Talon gunships. Equipped with twin assault cannons, I've opted for the Typhoon missile launchers as the secondary weapon system, as it allows the gunships to provide some anti-armor support or the capacity to shred infantry. Jumping over to this battalion's troops choices, the first unit is a 10-man infiltrator squad. While not cheap, these guys are here to help the White Scars control the board. Use them to control a vital mid-board position or objective. Sure, there are cheaper forward deploying units, but they are 20 wounds on an objective before the game begins, and they are valid for transhuman physiology and smoke grenades, and you can combat squad them during deployment if you think blast might be an issue. Forward deploying with the infiltrators is the second HQ choice, a Phobos Librarian. Seeing as how librarians on bikes are not in the codex, the Phobos Librarian makes up for the lack of mobility with more freedom during deployment. And to represent the White Scars Storm Seers, 1 additional command point has been spent on the relic the Mantle of the Storm Seer, which adds 1 to psychic tests for the Storm-speaking psychic powers. The first of his taken powers is Lightning Call, At Warp Charge 7, it deals D3 mortal wounds to any visible unit within 18 inches of the Psyker, which is some pretty good utility as far as offensive powers go. And if successful, you can do subsequent dice roll checks to see if additional mortal wounds are suffered as lightning continues to spear at the target. In the majority of cases, the Stormseer in this list is there as a mid-board mortal wound battery. Should enemy units try and contest against the infiltrators, the Phobos Librarian is ready to blast them with Lightning Call and Smite. His second power taken is Storm Wreathed. At a 6 upcast value, the Librarian will only need a 5 thanks to Mantle of the Stormseer, which isn't too bad, and if successful, it is applied to a unit within 12 inches. If that unit makes a charge move, there is a chance to deal a mortal wound, but more importantly, it removes the ability for Overwatch to be fired at the charging unit. Now I know in 9th edition, Overwatch is a far less likely occurrence, but for the moments where you charge targets that are capable, you'll be glad to have this power up your sleeve. With the goal of holding your backline objectives in mind, are a unit of intercessors taken with bolt rifles. Nothing too fancy here, they can hang back and leverage bolter discipline. A power sword has been taken on the Sergeant for points reasons, but I think it will be appreciated to have should the unit become engaged in melee combat in the late game. Supporting the backline intercessors is a classic box Dreadnought. His assault cannon has been swapped for multi-melta. Honestly, Dreadnoughts came out of the new codex as big winners. Between the built-in Duty Eternal ability, dropping any damage suffered by 1 point of damage, to the improved Wisdom of the Ancient stratagem, Dreadnoughts serve as a great component to have in any Space Marines list. The play for this guy here is to either trundle him up the board, Distraction Carnifex style, to add more threat saturation and leverage Wisdom of the Ancients as available, or he can hang back with the Intercessors if you suspect there will be reserves arriving to threaten your backfield objectives. The last troop's choice taken will be a 6-man squad of Assault Intercessors, with the Sergeant taking a Thunderhammer. These guys are your mid to late game offensive pushing unit, and they make for excellent candidates for all the Outrider stratagems plus litany combos mentioned previously. And to help those Assault Intercessors make their way to the mid-board or enemy deployment zone, they will be embarked within an Impulsor, fitted with a shield dome. And lastly, taking up a heavy support slot is a Devastator squad, taken with all Grav Cannons and a Cherub. Their goal is to bring down elite infantry. The Grav Cannon provides high volume with a good AP. Against targets with a 3-up save, your Space Marine equivalents, it will deal 2 damage flat, and against targets with worse saves, it will deal 1 damage, which covers a good portion of Xenos infantry. All said, I think it's pretty great in most scenarios. 9th edition gave the Grav Cannon an increased 6 inches of range. Combined with the White Scar stratagem, Hunter's Fusillade, for 1 command point, it allows the Grav Cannon to become an Assault 4 weapon after advancing, which the White Scars suffer no penalty from firing, so this squad of Devastators have a 36-inch plus d6 threat range, where they can fire an initial 20 shots at Strength 5, AP 4, thanks to the Devastator Doctrine, dealing between 1 to 2 points of damage. And that rounds up the list, coming in at 1999 points. It provides a total of 10 command points after our character upgrades, which will feed many of the finesse-oriented stratagems the White Scars have at their disposal. It features a very stylish and appropriate warlord in the Master of Sanctity on bike, and provides multiple quick units to advance towards the enemy lines and begin hemming them in. To quote the White Scars Primarch, Jagatai Khan, "Watch the horizon and remain mobile. In this way you will ever be the hunter and never be the prey." Well, that's a wrap on this one. Thanks for watching. I hope you found this video enjoyable and informative. It was the first thematic list build of 9th edition, and the first one in a while. What did you think? Is this something you guys would like to see more of? If so, let me know. Or if you have any other questions or comments, please feel free to drop them down below. And if you are a White Scars player, I'd be curious to know, how are you feeling with the new Space Marines Codex in hand? So, if you enjoyed this video, there's a like button. And if you want to help this channel grow, there's a subscribe button. There's also a bell button and a share button, so press the buttons you want to press. Thanks again for watching, and I will hope to see you guys in the next one.